You know that feeling, right? When a crush is, well, it's less of a crush and more like a full-time job. It just completely takes over. You can't stop thinking about them, you're replaying every little interaction, trying to decode every single message. So let's get into it because I think it's a feeling we've all had, but we don't really get why.
And it really all boils down to this one single question. Why is it that the person who gives us those mixed signals, the one we're not totally sure about, is the one who just completely hijacks our attention? Well, it turns out there's a really powerful and actually pretty predictable reason your brain gets so hooked on all that uncertainty.
So, what we're really digging into here, this isn't just your average, everyday crush. Nope. It's a very specific pattern, almost like a mental trap that our brains can easily fall into. We're going to call it the obsession loop.
Okay, so at the very core of this whole thing is something we can call the uncertainty loop. And look, this isn't just about liking someone. It's a cycle that's fueled by, well, inconsistent affection. Sometimes they're hot, sometimes they're cold. Psychologists have a term for this, intermittent reward. You mix that with all the imagined futures we cook up in our heads to try and make sense of it, and yeah, it's basically a perfect recipe for obsession. Here's what happens when someone's signals are all over the place. Our brain just hates that void. It can't stand the not knowing. So it immediately rushes in to fill all those gaps with stories, with different scenarios, with just endless analysis. It's simple, really. The less clarity you have, the harder your imagination goes into overdrive to create some. Okay, but what is actually happening inside our heads when all this is going on? Let's get into the science of it, because this is where it gets really interesting. We're about to meet the little chemical driver behind this entire experience.
And yeah, that secret driver, it's dopamine. Now hold on, because most people hear dopamine and they think pleasure chemical, but that's not quite the whole story. It's really more of a seeking chemical or a motivation chemical. It's the thing in your brain that pushes you to go after a reward. It's what keeps you focused and keeps you driven. Think about it like this. When a reward is predictable, let's say someone is super consistent and always shows they like you get a nice, steady little drip of dopamine. It feels good. But what happens when that reward is uncertain? When you're getting those mixed signals, your dopamine system just goes into complete overdrive. It turns out the possibility of getting a reward is way, way more exciting to your brain than actually getting a guaranteed one. And that is the roller coaster. But this dopamine roller coaster, it's not just some fascinating little brain quirk. It has real, tangible costs. This isn't just some abstract feeling. It actually changes how you see and interact with the entire world around you. For starters, your attention just narrows dramatically until this one person basically becomes the center of your entire universe. Then your ability to do a reality check, to step back and ask, hey, is this story I'm telling myself even true? That starts to drop off. And before you know it, the fantasy world you've built up in your head can start to feel way more real and maybe even more comforting than your actual life. All right, so that's the problem. It's a powerful loop and it's wired right into our neurology. But here's the good news. You are not powerless here, not at all. Once you actually understand the pattern, you can start to train your brain how to break out of it. So here's a simple 3-step plan for taking back control. And listen, this isn't about becoming some kind of robot with no emotions. It's about giving your brain better information to work with and finding healthier ways to regulate itself. So let's break these down one by one. Okay, step 1 is all about shifting your focus. Remember, that dopamine high comes from the unpredictability, right? From the intensity of the maybe. So to break that cycle, you have to consciously, deliberately start valuing consistency instead. It's about training yourself to appreciate what's stable and reliable, not just chasing what feels exciting. Step 2 is super practical. You've got to reduce your exposure to the cues. This is all about creating some distance. Because think about it. Every single time you check their social media or you go back and reread old text messages, you're basically pulling the lever on a slot machine. You're keeping that dopamine loop alive and kicking. So if you limit those triggers, you start to starve the loop of the fuel it needs to run. And finally, step 3. This is about re-anchoring yourself. See, when one person becomes your main source for feeling good, for your emotional regulation, the stakes just get way too high. The solution is to diversify. You've got to invest your energy in other things: hobbies, friendships, your work, personal projects. Anything that gives you a sense of purpose and stability that has absolutely nothing to do with that one person. When you start to get all this, it does more than just give you tools. It gives you a completely new way of looking at the entire experience. It's like
It moves you out of this place of total confusion and into a place of real clarity. And this right here is probably the most powerful shift in thinking you can make. It just reframes everything. You stop calling yourself irrational and you start treating this whole loop like something that is trainable. You're not crazy. Your brain is just running a program and you can learn how to debug it. You literally go from judging yourself to coaching yourself. So please, remember this. Getting stuck in one of these uncertainty loops, it is not a character flaw. It's a predictable, totally understandable brain pattern. And just knowing that, just seeing the pattern for what it is the first and most crucial step toward changing it. It really does give you the power back. And that kind of leaves us with one last thing to think about. Once you realize you can actively train your brain's responses in this one area of your life, well, it opens up a much bigger question, doesn't it? What other patterns, what other habits or loops in your life have you just been tolerating when maybe, just maybe, you could actually be training them instead?